Here's how every single #1 overall pick panned out in the NFL since 2000. Drafting NFL talent has to be one of the most difficult jobs in the world. So we wanted to take a peek at everybody that's been taken 1 of 1. Starting in 2000, the Browns took Courtney Brown. And there's a reason that unless you're a salty Browns fan, you probably never heard this name. Courtney Brown started in 16 games as a rookie, but only ended up playing 5 total seasons in the league and totaled 19 career sacks. Brown was never a Pro Bowler, and it's pretty safe to say that this was a bust. In 2001, the Atlanta Falcons took Michael Vick. Vick was a 3-time Pro Bowler, won Comeback Player of the Year, and finished top 5 in MVP voting multiple times. Obviously, when you say the name Michael Vick, a lot of people think of the off-field antics. And the crazy thing about that is when all that happened and Vick went to prison, he was in his prime. Those were some of his best years wasted. So Michael Vick was absolutely a stud, not a bust by any means, but some of his best years, he didn't even play football. He was the first quarterback to ever rush for over 1,000 yards. He's an iconic player to a lot of people because he's so good in Madden. And he's a lefty, which is so cool. So Michael Vick, absolute stud pick for the Atlanta Falcons. In 2002, the Texans took David Carr. Honestly, it would be so easy to shit on David Carr because David Carr did not have a good career at all. But I think context is kind of important here. So #1, this was the first pick in the Houston Texans franchise history. David Carr was never a Pro Bowler. He never threw for more than 16 touchdowns in a single season. But he was completely sabotaged behind a terrible, league-worst offensive line with a franchise that just started out and probably did not know what they were doing. Now, granted, I think if David Carr was a generational talent, he would have performed really well anyway. I think Joe Burrow in his first couple years had a terrible offensive line and still was able to perform. Check this out, though. David Carr was sacked 249 times from 2002 to 2006. 249. He holds the record for the most times being sacked in a single season at 76. Take that into account, 76, okay? We've got a 17-game NFL season right now. So if you got sacked 4 times a game, you know how many times you'd be sacked in today's league? You would have been sacked 68 times. He was on average, getting sacked 5 times a game. Granted, like, you got to give the ball out, and there's a whole lot of bad stuff going on with that franchise, but wow, that's insane. I don't know who could have flourished like that. He could have been better somewhere else, but we have to call this a bust. He didn't do anything. In 2003, the Bengals took Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer was really good. He was a 3-time Pro Bowler. He finished twice in MVP voting in the top 5. So he never won an MVP, but he was in the top 5 twice. He was All-Pro second team in 2015, and he finished his career with 46,000 passing yards, almost 300 touchdowns, 294, and he won a couple playoff games. Carson Palmer was an excellent pick for the Bengals. In 2004, technically, it was the Giants selecting Eli Manning, but that's not true. The Chargers actually selected Eli Manning, but Eli Manning famously told the Chargers to literally fuck off. He said, "I will not play a snap for your team if you select me first." So the Chargers selected him anyway as trade bait, and so they ended up trading with the Giants for Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers ended up being great too, so I don't think it was a horrible trade by any means. Obviously, Eli won the Super Bowl twice. He was Super Bowl MVP twice. He's a Manning. He's a stud. This was such a good pick. He actually is one of probably the best 1-of-1 picks in the last 30 years. He's definitely one of the best. In 2005, the 49ers took Alex Smith. Now, Alex Smith on the 49ers was actually kind of trash, but famously, Alex Smith then goes to Kansas City and he mentors Patrick Mahomes. He kind of revitalized his career. I think a lot of people think of Alex Smith as a Kansas City Chief. Those first couple years of San Fran, he did not do much. So good for him. He's not a bust, but he's also not a prolific quarterback by any means. 2006, the Texans took Mario Williams. Mario Williams was a 4-time Pro Bowler. He got first-team All-Pro once, and he finished his career with just under 100 sacks at 97.5. I think the Texans were looking for more out of him. I think they wanted him to be like a Hall of Famer, but he was still really good. If you can get a very solid guaranteed athlete at the 1-of-1, that's a great pick. So Mario Williams, a very good pick for the Houston Texans. 2007, probably the most famous 1-of-1 pick of all time, was JaMarcus Russell. Widely considered to be the biggest bust of all time. He only played 3 years in the NFL and threw for 18 touchdowns and 23 interceptions. So JaMarcus Russell at LSU was a god. It was so obvious that he was going to be the first pick. And I know you guys have heard this story before, but you can't talk about JaMarcus Russell without talking about this. Now, the Raiders coaches were worried that JaMarcus Russell was blowing off his responsibilities as a quarterback. For example, they thought JaMarcus Russell was not watching tape. They're sending him home with this tape to review film, review the defenses. So they set him up. They sent JaMarcus Russell home with blank tapes. They said, hey, JaMarcus, check out this game film. Come back to us tomorrow and let us know what you think about it. Well, that very same day, JaMarcus Russell went home and did not shit with those tapes, never touched them, comes back to the practice facility the next day and tells the coaches what he learned in the film. Oh, I wish I could have been there to witness the coaches' responses. The coaches are listening to JaMarcus Russell tell them all about the film when they sent him home with blank fucking tapes. Dude, they could have put pornos on there and JaMarcus Russell would have had no clue because he never watched them. I think the worst part about this, though, that JaMarcus Russell ended up sucking was, you know who the 2 picks were after JaMarcus Russell? Was Calvin Johnson, Megatron, to the Detroit Lions. And 103 was Joe Thomas to the Cleveland Browns. One of the greatest tackles of all time. Definitely the best tackle of the last 30 years. A swing and a miss for the Raiders. That is a bummer that they will never live down. 2008, Jake Long went to the Miami Dolphins. His first 4 years were absolutely insane. He made 4 Pro Bowls, first team All-Pro. It really looked like he might even go to the Hall of Fame, but then the injury bug caught him and he did not keep up that pace at all. But he did end up playing 8 years in the NFL, was a super, super solid player. So the Dolphins, especially for those 4 years, very happy to have Jake Long. 2009, the Detroit Lions took Matthew Stafford out of Georgia. Obviously, I'm biased. I think Stafford is absolutely amazing. Super Bowl champion now with the Rams. Pro Bowler, comeback player of the year. I think if he keeps doing super, super well with the Rams, he is a potential Hall of Famer, but he would have to continue on a very good pace. He's thrown for 52,000 yards in his career and 333 touchdowns, which puts him well above Carson Palmer, who is 15th all-time in both categories, and Stafford still has a lot of years left. It's very possible that Stafford's going to finish top 10 or top 5 in a lot of passing categories, and he very well could go to the Hall of Fame, but, you know, I'm a biased Lions fan. Of course, I'm wearing a Lions shirt. Like, of course, I'm going to say this about Stafford. Either way, he's definitely not bust. He's a stud. 2010, Sam Bradford goes to the Rams. He had a really weird career. After winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, Bradford really didn't do much else. Never made a Pro Bowl, won any other awards. He did throw for nearly 20,000 yards in his career and 103 touchdowns. He's basically a journeyman. He definitely got paid. I'm sure he's having an excellent life, but he was not a prolific first pick. So I think you could chalk Sam Bradford up to a bust. 2011, the Panthers took Cam Newton. Obviously a stud. 3-time Pro Bowler, Offensive Rookie of the Year. He won MVP, and he did have what is honestly a pretty sad Super Bowl appearance. Cam Newton is great. I think it's just a really sad piece of the legacy for Cam Newton because so many people just remember that one play where he refused to jump on the football in the Super Bowl. You kind of got to jump on that ball. I'm sure Cam Newton regrets it too. The latter half of his career certainly wasn't as good when he got MVP with the Panthers. To me, it felt like Cam Newton had a really hot hand. Like, he was crazy, crazy good, and it did feel like he regressed really fast. It was difficult for him to transition into a pass-first quarterback now that he's older and not as athletic. But still, I mean, he's so good. Cam Newton won MVP. This is an incredibly good pick. 2012, Andrew Luck went to the Colts. He was pretty much a no-doubt Hall of Famer before his random, at least seemingly random, retirement in 2018. He only played 6 years in the NFL, which is kind of crazy. He was a 4-time Pro Bowler and a comeback player of the year. And he basically said to everybody, to the Colts organization and to the fans, he said, look, this is not worth the trauma. It's not worth the damage on my body. It's not worth the concussions. I have enough money to be set for life, and I want to live happily with my family. Honestly, it's a fucking genius decision. It's kind of crazy that a lot more players don't do it. I think a lot of players, they care so much about winning, they care so much about the game that they want to stay, or they don't make the kind of money that Andrew Luck made. Andrew Luck was an incredible quarterback. He got stupid money. There are guys that have been in the league 8 years, and the max their contract ever was is $3 million a year. That's like 1 year for Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck was doing brand deals too. So I get why Andrew Luck did what he did. It's just not an option for a lot of players. So I might have done the same thing if I was Andrew Luck. He was amazing. This is a great pick. you can't exactly predict that a player will give up on the sport. 2013, the Chiefs took Eric Fisher. He played for the Chiefs for 7 years, which is solid. He made 2 Pro Bowls and won a Super Bowl in 2020. Eric Fisher was definitely not what they expected. I think they expected like a Trent Williams, like a prolific tackle. I wouldn't even say at any point in his career was he like the best tackle or even really in the top 3. But listen, they got a Super Bowl. He was a part of that team, and he's been a very, very solid player for them. I just think he's probably wasn't worth the first pick that the Chiefs used on him. But still, I mean, it's a very good tackle. Not a bust, not a stud either. 2014, Jadeveon Clowney went to the Texans. Clowney on South Carolina was just a menace. This was a pretty obvious pick for a lot of people. Texans like their edge rushers with their first pick. They had Mario Williams before. Maybe they're trying to replicate it with Clowney. Clowney, not as amazing, I think, as people expected, but still very good. He's still in the league. He has 43 career sacks. He's made 3 Pro Bowls. And right now, I would say he's regressing. He's certainly declining in ability, it would appear. But who knows? He could continue to have an incredible career. I don't know. I mean, he was drafted in 2014, and it's almost 2024 at this point, so he's certainly got some wear and tear. Not as amazing as they thought, but still a good player. 2015, Jameis Winston, Buccaneers. Jameis Winston is a fan favorite, but you almost have to call him a bust. I don't want to call him a bust, but okay, he made a Pro Bowl in his rookie year, but right now he's on the bench for the Saints. When he played with Tampa Bay, he was okay, but he was a very questionable pass maker. He threw a lot more interceptions than he should have, and the minute Tampa Bay brought in Tom Brady, granted, Tom Brady the greatest of all time, they won a Super Bowl. So it did kind of feel like Tampa Bay had all the pieces except for quarterback. And they didn't even change the team that much. Tom Brady comes in and boom, it's a Super Bowl. So I love Jameis Winston as much as the next guy, but to use your first overall pick on a guy who's not even a starter in the league anymore and wasn't very good when he was a starter, I feel inclined to say Jameis Winston was a bust. 2016, Jared Goff goes to the Rams. Goff had an absolutely insane season. The season he went to the Super Bowl, he was nuts. And then they crumbled, and it felt like after that, Jared Goff regressed. And now it's almost like he's back on the up and up. You know, this last season he had with the Detroit Lions was really, really good. The latter half of the season, he played amazing. It remains to be seen what we're going to say about Jared Goff. But he was very solid for the Rams, and hopefully can be really good with the Detroit Lions. I'm not going to say he's a prolific pick, though, by any means. I think he had one really good season, and he's been questionable on his turnover status. It remains to be seen with Jared Goff. Honestly, a lot of these players remains to be seen the closer we get to the current year. 2017, Myles Garrett. This was a free pick for the Cleveland Browns. There was no question they were taking Myles Garrett. He was probably the most surefire guaranteed talent in that draft class, where if you had the first pick, you just take Myles Garrett and just watch him be amazing. And that's what happened. Myles Garrett is an absolute stud, played 6 years in the league, 4 Pro Bowls, 2 first-team All-Pros, and 74.5 total sacks. So let's compare that to Jadeveon Clowney. So Jadeveon Clowney drafted 3 years prior, and Jadeveon Clowney has 43 career sacks. Myles Garrett drafted 3 years later, has 74.5. Myles Garrett was such a good pick. He's incredible. 2018, the Browns followed up that pick with an absolute flop. In 2018, the Browns took Baker Mayfield. Yeah, this is a big time bust. I love Baker Mayfield. I think he's an awesome player. He just is not a round one, pick one solid player. He's on his 3rd team in 5 years. He's never won an award, never been a Pro Bowler. Honestly, his future remains to be seen. He's on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. Who knows if he's even going to be a starter for Tampa Bay? I think that is the plan, but we'll see how he plays. I do personally hope that Baker revives his career in the latter half. He's played for some shit teams, and that little stint with the Rams, he was all right, and that was a good team. I don't know, unless Baker did some monumental thing to turn his career around, I think it is fair to say he's a bust. 2019, Kyler Murray goes to the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray could literally have gone to the MLB too. I don't think people understand just how prolific of an athlete Kyler Murray is. This dude literally could be in the MLB right now. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's already made 2 Pro Bowls. He does not have the stats or the wins right now I think that people want. And he's really prone to just getting shit on by the media because all the Call of Duty memes. But listen, he's so talented, unbelievably talented. And I think Cliff Kingsbury was a big issue for Arizona. And I'm glad that he's out now. And hopefully whoever comes in, they can really fully utilize Kyler Murray. And I hope that he continues to have a really good career. But I'm not going to get even close to calling Kyler Murray a bust. He's not even in the discussion right now. Kyler Murray's awesome. 2020 Joe Burrow. Holy shit. I mean, we're so early in, and you almost could put this in just such an unbelievably good pick. He's played 3 years at this point. He's already won Comeback Player of the Year, a Pro Bowl, finished top 5 in MVP voting already, and has a Super Bowl appearance. I would even argue that he's a top 5 QB right now. In fact, I would argue he's definitely a top 5 QB in my eyes right now. So unless he has a monumental injury, this is going to be an incredible, incredible pick. And I'm going to say the same thing for 2021, which is Trevor Lawrence to the Jaguars. Okay, the first year, which was an absolute struggle, Urban Meyer was the head coach, and Urban Meyer was horrible. So many horrible stories came out about just how bad it was with Urban Meyer in there. Well, guess what? Urban Meyer goes out, and Trevor Lawrence leads his team to a massive playoff comeback win. I think the biggest playoff comeback win in history. I think things are only going up for Trevor Lawrence. I think this season was an excellent example of that. And I think we will see that this was an excellent pick for the Jaguars, but who knows? And then in 2022, the Jaguars get the little back-to-back here, and they go for Trayvon Walker. His first year was slow. I'm not going to lie. 3.5 sacks, a forced fumble, and a pick. It's just his first year. He has so much time to develop. Definitely a slow first year if you compare this to Myles Garrett, for example. Myles Garrett had 7 sacks in his first season. So 3.5 still isn't that little. He definitely has time to develop, but I wouldn't say it's the hottest start ever for the first pick. He was also, in my opinion, significantly outperformed by Aiden Hutchinson, who was the second pick and went to the Detroit Lions, so whatever. But all right, boys, that is every single round 1, pick 1 in the NFL since 2000. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know this is a new type of video for me. It's a blast to do stuff like this. I hope you guys enjoyed. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.